What's up, everybody? Hey, welcome to hell. We're just going to call it what it is today. Welcome to Moving the Military podcast. Honest, let's have a conversation. Let's be truthful. Let's peel some shit back today and be transparent. Hey, as always, I'm the co-founder of Moving the Military and your co-host, and I'm here every single week with my co-founder and the co-host, the hostess with the mostest, Deana. Give me a word today. Describe what we're feeling.
Um, the word overwhelm, overstimulated, over it, over like just you
Just
guys
fucking over.
over. Yeah, we're not gonna complain throughout this podcast, so don't turn this off. There's gonna be some real current life lessons that you could take some lessons out of. Um, but if we're just being honest, Matt, that's mine. What's yours? What's the? I mean, it's weird. Hold on, because it's in this. It's like in between two extremes for me. It's overwhelmed and overstimulated on one side and overjoyed on the other side because we're doing exactly what we've wanted to do. We're doing exactly the right things. We're, aligned with really amazing human beings. And it's like overly grateful, but overstimulated
Yeah.
all together. So it's two extremes for
Well, I
me.
think over is the right word. I think over is the right word because you're exactly right. Like literally, we are overjoyed with what has happened in the last 90 days. We are overly grateful for the ride or dies and the people that have partnered with us. Man, we're overly grateful for the class that we just spent an hour teaching on authority, right? And the fact that those that are in there with us live on screen are talking about what they've already changed in their business and what they're going to change today. So overjoyed, over grateful, all those things. But there's a side of it, not the negative side, because it is overwhelming, but it's not negatively overwhelming. It's a new form of awareness that we've got to own, that we got to make some adjustments so we can do the right thing, right? And, if you were to ask me real quick what I was thinking, I would say, here's the deal, man, we made a decision 90 days ago and we've been doing it. I mean, we've been putting in the work. We've been putting in the grind. We've been doing the time. Me and you we spend more time together in the last 90 days than we've done in the 3.5, 4 years prior to just doing what we're doing. Yeah, we burnt some bridges. We burnt some boats. We did some things. We started over. And man, what everybody sees this beautiful. And for my car people on here, I'm going to appeal to you, right? What you see is a beautiful number matching 1978 Z28 Camaro, 396, 4-speed on the floor, 225s in the front, 275s in the back. I mean, like, it's ready for Barrett Jackson, the auction. Like, it's ready to be in Scottsdale getting sold for $150,000. You see that. But what you don't see is what's under the hood,
Yeah.
how many times we changed the suspension, how many times what fuel we're putting into it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
during the crisis, are we a Camaro or a Corvette or are we
Yeah.
a Group D? What
Is
are we
this a
doing?
Trans Am? Is this a Pontiac, a Chevy, a Trans Am, a Z28? Like, is it an SS? Like, all those different things you guys haven't seen. And it can be a little overwhelming when you're rebuilding something from, and I think here's the key. When you're rebuilding something from a different perspective, when you're rebuilding something from lessons learned, not going into it blind, not using hope as a strategy, throwing that out and saying, okay, this is what works. This is what needs to happen. And I think it's always this thing that, you heard from somebody years ago, you taught me years ago. What makes it overwhelming is, does my willingness match my want? Do my want and desire to be dominant in this space, am I willing to relearn all the things I learned before? Am I willing to throw everything that worked away to create my blueprint? So that's where it becomes overwhelming, not negative. It feels heavy, but the positive will be overjoy, over grateful in the end.
Yeah, I think, and I'll speak for myself in this. I don't, claim to know exactly where you are, but for me, it's the reality of what it's going to take to have what we want being put in front of you every single day and it being so far out of your comfort zone and so far away from what you had as normal in a completely different way of thinking about business and You know, we teach this a lot, especially in our like, we have many of you don't know this because we also haven't really talked about a lot of what we like have done since the beginning of the year. For particular reasons that we'll leave unnamed, but we started at the beginning of this year a high level mastermind around people who make a lot of money in real estate. They're the top of their markets, the top of the company, and they just were feeling as if they were not really aligned in the rest of their lives. Like they were this great performer in business, but then life felt a real like emptiness or heavy or not necessarily sure of what their values were or why they were drifting. And so we started this mastermind that we call Ascension. And it's the idea of how do we help you ascend in your whole life, not just your business? And I say this because one of the things that we've been working with them on is what we did a year and a half ago of like, let's get extremely crystal clear on who we are, our strengths, our values, and not only what amount of money we want to make, but what do we want our day to day life to look like? And so we spent a really long time dreaming this up, this reality that we're currently living in. We dreamt this up for a year and a half and we ran down every piece of clarity down every one of those
Yeah,
roadways.
that's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna jump in and say is that, like, I think that once we had this dream and we had the passion and we knew this was our purpose, then we had to get crystal clear. And it wasn't just crystal clear about what it would take. It was crystal clear on let's go back to when we were at our absolute best. What were we doing? You know, I love to say it. What were our principles, practices, and habits that had us at our best? And I think the other thing that really has happened over the last 90 days is we've had to get really crystal clear on who we are. Like literally, like we knew who we are, but who we are in this space, you know, gaining authority again, repositioning, and how do we want our interactions with other people to be? How do we want our interactions with ourselves to be at the end of the day? So we had to get super crystal clear on all of that as well.
Yeah, I had a conversation with somebody about a year ago, and they asked me, do you think that when people get clear on their values and their purpose and they know it beyond, like they know it with every fiber of their being, do you think it's always a good thing? And because I was on slightly the other side of doing that and in a lot of turmoil, I said, I don't actually think it is. I think it is eventually a great thing that when you get really clear on what you want and you're following that path, it turns out to be a great thing. But I think in the middle is where we might be right now is like when when you are making big moves. Okay, so this could be a podcast all by itself. When you're making big moves, and as Tony Robbins talks about, taking massive action, and you are untethering yourself from every piece of who you used to be in order to be a new version and have a new business and all of that, there's this old version of you versus the new version of you, and you guys are going to war internally every fucking day. Every second of every day.
It is no longer comfortable.
Yeah, what it's going to take to be that person and have that business is in direct conflict with who you've been, because I believe if you had already been that person and already been acting as massively as you needed to, you would have already had the life you're looking for. And so we are currently we are far enough away from the adrenaline of the new year and the adrenaline of like setting fire to everything we had
Yeah,
been.
we're past the stage of new year, new you, like that excitement, that fuel. Like the 91 octane, right? The nitrous has wore the fuck off. And now we're back to like, okay, shit. Are we running mid grade or unleaded in this thing, man? What am I,
Oh,
and that's true though. What am I willing to pay today to put into my tank?
yeah. And it's a day, we're saying this because I think that's the reality that a lot of you are faced with too is you want to have bigger business, you want to do something different. You go to a conference and you get jazzed up or you get excited about a podcast you listen to and you're like, I'm going to do it. And then you do it for a second and then you do it for another day and then the octane wears off and you're left with like a lot of stress around why you're not continuing to show up as that person. But when we made the commitment to each other, actually, Matt, like that we're going to go do this together and you're going to have a bad day when I'm having a great day and you got to get me out of my crap. Today's that day for me. I'm having a really interesting morning. And then there are some times where I'm like, Matt, I hadn't heard from you in a couple days. You good? And you're like, nope, I'm not. And I'm like, well, get your shit together because we got to keep going. It's the reality that it's our expectations did not match what reality would look like in terms of how much work it would be, how long it would take, And I think that's normal for everybody that's in business for themselves. We always have this dream of this big thing, but when we dream of it, which is what we did with moving the military, we dream of it in its completed state. We don't dream of this. We don't dream of waking up on a Tuesday after a weekend far away at soccer tournaments, having to show up and do these videos. And we love honestly, we love doing this podcast. It's been a really fun surprise that we have enjoyed doing this so much, but it's still work on a Tuesday when you'd rather go back to sleep and when nobody's watching. We could
Well, I think
easily say, we'll do it another time, but we don't.
well, the hardest thing to do, and I'll tie it to anybody that's listening to this, everybody that's listening that's in real estate, right? That's in a profession, an industry. Man, the hardest thing to do when you get jazzed up, Deana, is stay, and I wrote it down, man, is stay grounded in the foundation, stay grounded in the purpose, not expect to be in the outcome already, and then definitely stop chasing the shiny objects, right? Because if you take it to real estate, man, you can chase shiny objects, you can get creative all day long, but if you don't stay rooted in the foundation, you don't stay rooted in the purpose, right? Then you drift. The guardrails are gone and you get lost in life and in business. And that's been one of the hard things to do is when you're a high performer, right? In real estate, in life, in business, in family, athletics, whatever it is, you want to get to the goal. You just want to get to the outcome, right? To slow down and actually grow into what the outcome is going to be, that's where the conflict is, right? The conflict is that growth, right? The marinating in the growth, the marinating in the decisions, to stay grounded and not chase shiny objects, not measure yourself in the gap, because we teach all the time about measuring yourself in the gain, not the gap. But when you do something this large and do something this big, it's hard not to measure yourself in the gap when you know what the outcome's gonna be and you're so excited to get there and you're overly grateful, but then you're overwhelmed at what it's actually taking to get there.
Well, the way I think about it a lot lately, and I think it's just because I have a small kid and I've spent a lot of time in the car with him lately, is like every day I wake up and there is the 6-year-old version of me in the back of my head going, "Mom, are we there yet? Mom, are we there yet? Mom, are we there yet?" And I'm just like, "Shut up!" So it's like that's the visual that I have, Matt. Like, it's this like tiny infant version of Dina that's like, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" And you're like, "No, we're driving
It's
coast
like
to
my
coast."
grandson yesterday, my grandbaby came over yesterday to visit me. Yesterday's my birthday, so he came over to visit me. And no matter what we were doing, he was just like, "Can I have the cake yet? Can I have the cake
Yeah.
yet?" And like he is so excited to get to the cake, but he doesn't want to eat the dinner, doesn't want to go outside and play, doesn't want to do anything he has to do.
He doesn't want the process. He just wants
No,
the
he just wants to get the cake, man. Like I came to see grandpa and get cake. Like, what's going on?
Yeah. I wrote this down while you were talking because I think it's a really good point. We build our vision for things and our dreams for things and the plans that it takes to get them when we are at our most heightened state of motivation normally. And
When you are in the honeymoon phase of that thing, you just put a ring on the idea and you're in the honeymoon phase, that's when everything like it's
that's when you build the path that you think you're going to follow. But what I wrote down that I think we should all ask ourselves, that we have to ask ourselves a lot lately, is, am I willing to follow this plan on my worst day? Am I willing to commit to whatever I just built on my worst day? Because you're building the plan and the dream on your best day. But is this a plan and a dream I can follow on my worst day? And I'll be honest, I was up until 11 o'clock almost last night finishing the content scheduling for this week because that yesterday morning I woke up and I was like, not today, Satan. And not today. I'm not doing this today. I don't want to sit here for 2 hours. I was pouting.
and
I
Matt's
was,
texting you like, "Hey, like, what is the slides at? This is your role. What are we doing?" And you, I think it was you said, "Hey, you're gonna get it last minute. Just be ready to hit send because that's when it's coming. Get a pen, paper, take notes. That's what's gonna happen today."
yeah, but I bring it up like we're talking about this in real time because both of us are very still committed to what we want this to be and we know. And it's cool because we're starting to see like glimmers of
Yeah,
it
we're
turning
getting
into it.
traction. We're getting traction.
Yeah, and it's like the dichotomy between we're super grateful and we can see it taking hold with other people too, and now we're like, "Damn it, I don't wanna show up today." It's like I had war with myself all day yesterday, and I said, "Before I go to sleep, finally, right before I was about to go to bed, I put Weston to bed. It was like 9 o'clock, and I thought to myself, I promised myself on my worst day I would still do this every Monday. And it's still Monday until midnight, and I was up until 10:48 last night scheduling this content because I was like, I have to do it. I have to do it. I have to do it. Did I want to? No, but can I still commit to the plan on my worst day? Yesterday was definitely not my worst day, but it was mentally a little bit much. And you just got to do it sometimes, I think.
Well, and I think here's the other thing too, and I'm going to go back to this is, we cast this vision, we do all these great things, and like you said, we have to be willing to do it on our absolute worst day. But I think what makes it hard, Dean, and correct me if I'm wrong, what makes me hard is we're no longer going into this ignorant. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but we're no longer going into it ignorant. We're no longer going into it blind. We can no longer say we don't know what we don't know about things. And
Mhm.
I think it makes it a little bit tougher, right? If you're on this call and you're in real estate right now and you're ready to try something different, you're ready to do something different, you're ready to expand, you don't want to chase leads anymore, right? You're literally like, I want to be chosen, I don't want to be interviewed. You can't do the same things you've always done. You know what works and what doesn't work. Are you willing to get rid of all the excuses, all the BS, and say, "Well, I don't know what I don't know." You do know what you know now. Like you're done passing learning to know, you're learning to do. Are you ready to do something different and execute that takes you out of your comfort zone, that is no longer, because here's the thing, transparency, what's messing with me, what's fucking with me right now is I am so damn good in my natural ability. But what I know is eventually in this next evolution, my natural ability is going to be exposed. Am I willing to do the things to become more purposeful, to become more educated, to do things differently that's maybe and actually is outside of my natural ability? That's the internal conflict you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think that showed up a little bit for you yesterday late afternoon when we'll leave out the names, right? But you called and there's someone, so we'll talk about it because I feel like we're far enough away from us leaving that we can safely talk about this now. But we joined EXP, right? And part of us building moving the military is that there is a component of it that we have where we want to actually lock arms with people who join us at EXP and help them build their military businesses side by side instead of just classes and stuff. And Matt has always been really good at, I love you, man. I'm just gonna say it. Telling other people what they need to get done because it's what he needs to get done and they work with him, right? And that's how you led in the military and that's your natural ability is you dictate, you oversee and you move on. You dictate, oversee and move on. But and I'm the same way, right? So I not through the military, but through building a large team, cast a vision, dictate the tasks, oversee it being done by someone else and move
Expect
on
what
to the
you
next thing.
expect, move on to the next one. Let's go.
Well, that shit doesn't work when there's only two of us here. So the funny thing is, it's like I dictated it, but who's doing it? Oh fuck, that's me. Oh shit, that's me. I'm supposed to be doing this. So it's not
Well, if
funny,
you
but
say I called
no.
Dina yesterday and I had a complete meltdown, spin out, overwhelmed because I was not in control and I could not see the next step and I could not make sure it happened in the way that it needed to happen for me, right? And Dina was like, "Is this a real problem?" And I was like, "No, it's not a real problem. It's a math problem, right? Like literally, it's a math problem."
I'm getting out of the grocery store and I'm walking around talking to you, and I'm like,
It
first of
was to
all,
the point I was venting for so long. Dina went from the cold food section to I could hear her in the
checking out.
I could hear her in the self-checkout doing her own stuff, right? But the thing is this is I had to be willing yesterday to give up control to do something differently, which was an absolute internal conflict with me from what I've done in the past, right? And that's part of the learning. That's part of the going to the next thing. That's part of
But
growing in the goal.
well, but the funny thing about me being on the other side of the meltdown yesterday was all I kept thinking about was this being this easy for us was why we left and what we wanted. And why are you mad about the fact that this is easy for us because this is no longer our job? And it was like he was trying to continue to have control over the job that we left for a reason, but
Because
now
here's the thing though, and so for the audience, that control was utterly successful. That control took me to the highest ability as part of my natural ability to see things, to execute, to do all those things, to mitigate obstacles. I had to be willing yesterday to give that control up. Now, I'm struggling with it because there's 3 or 4 emails that have come in the last 5 minutes that I'm trying not to look at, right, that are going on because I'm like, "Oh my god, this still's not done. Why is it not done yet?" But I'm like, "Okay, I can't
and then I
control it."
said, "Matt, didn't you go through this same process? It's pretty self-explanatory." And he's like, "Yeah, but I just don't know where they are in the process." I was like, "Why? This doesn't seem like a problem." The whole time I was like, "Is this a problem? I do not understand." And it was a problem to him because that was rubbing up against his natural ability. Today, I'm having a problem of something that's rubbing up against my natural ability.
Well, it's because and today your problem is because of the fact that and it goes back to what I said, your problem today is the overwhelm because you are finally aware. You are no longer blind, right? And I'll say that. You are no longer blind to what is actually going to take to get to the next level. You are no longer blind that the way you've done it, the way we've been taught to do it, is not the right answer anymore, which means for you now, I've got to do
Well,
I've got to open 3 or 4 different boxes I did not want to open. But for me to do it differently, I got to do it.
so here's my version of what happened to you yesterday. So I'm now aware of it and I'm also now in control of fixing it because before I knew these things and I would go on to calls and I'm trying really hard not to say something I'm not supposed to. I would go on to calls and I'd be like, "You guys, this is broken. This doesn't work this way anymore. These programs don't run like this anymore. The registrations are down for this reason." And I was told it's not my business. I was told like, "Okay, we're working on it. We're working on it, but that's not for you to figure out."
It's not your lane right now.
My lane.
Great. Thank you for being aware of it. But we
Yes.
got something to stay in your lane.
Yeah. And now it is my lane. And so now instead of just bringing up the problem, because I'm pretty good at seeing things and noticing patterns, but my natural ability gap is I'm learning my way out of this and I'm acting my way through it. But my natural rub is I don't implement very quickly. Like I will marinate in something for a long time until somebody else fixes it, or if it just goes away, it goes away. But right now, as I'm building the next version of things for us and for myself, I'm noticing the way things need to be, but not acting on it fast enough because it's hitting up against my own leadership blind spots, which have been like, I can see it before anybody else does. I can see the whole chess game playing, and I can tell you where that person's about to move. But I've never been the one in the last 10 years that's had to move the chess pieces.
It's a new level of ownership. I mean, literally, it's a new level of ownership. When you go to the next level in this industry, it's a new level of ownership. You are phenomenal about being aware and making other people aware. But what's worked in the past is we've become aware, we've made other people aware, they've gone and executed, we've inspected it, we've had them make the adjustments to take the right action. But we haven't missed. We've had ownership of the things that are in our, like you said, in your lane. Now every fucking thing's in our lane, right? And we own everything. And that's different. It's a different perspective. It's a different heaviness
Well,
that
it's
you
like
carry.
they always say when you're young, be careful what you wish for. Hello. It's just, what we wished for was, I want to run as fast as I want to run. I want to let the gate open. I'm a thoroughbred racehorse. I want to be in control of all of this. I don't want
I
you
don't
telling
want to be
me.
told what to do. I want
I
to
don't
make
want.
my own decisions. I want to blaze my own path. I'm going to climb my own. It goes everybody on this call, right? We talked about gearheads, cars. We talked about things. Look, for all my veterans on this call that are listening, you all know what I'm talking about. When you were that young E4, you're like, hell yeah, I can't wait to make sergeant. They don't do anything. I can't wait to make staff sergeant. I can't wait to make platoon sergeant. But every time you got that next rank, a whole bunch more responsibility, a whole bunch more shit rolling downhill, a whole bunch more ownership. It's the same thing. We asked for freedom. We got it. We asked to have the gate open so we could run the Kentucky Derby. We got it. It's that internal conflict of who we were and who we are now, and that's literally
It's
crashing
like,
heads. And we're not the only ones. Everyone listening to this call, this is not just a therapy session between Matt and Deana doing each other, right? They're therapying each other. It's actually like,
you've said two things really inappropriate.
I
I've
know, right? But it's
just
not a therapy session, right? It's reality for some of you out there facing it too. Like, I mean, it's time to take ownership and go to the next level. Your natural ability, my friends, is being exposed. Your natural ability in the military niche is causing you to get comfortable, and comfortable is actually causing you to be invisible.
Yeah, you're really killing me. Have you noticed all the inappropriate accidents you've had so far in this podcast?
No, not today.
I'm like trying to keep my shit together over here listening to you. It's like a few minutes ago you said what makes me hard, and then now you're talking about doing each other. What's happening?
Whoa!
Need you to figure it out, Matt,
Is this
because
the triple? This is the moving the military triple X edition here. All right,
I can't keep a straight face.
bring it back, Dana. Bring it back.
I can't. My face hurts. I've been trying so hard not to smile because I know that somebody's gonna watch this on YouTube instead of just listening to it, and I've just been like, okay, anyway.
So
No,
let's
but for
talk
real,
about your dilemma. So
yeah.
your dilemma right now, we have a few minutes, right? Let's diagnose and figure out your dilemma, right? So your dilemma is now that you have a realization, now that you're aware, now that you can no longer use the excuse that you don't know what you don't know, is what? And I'm asking it because people on the call, I guarantee you there's 50% of the population on this call that is going through the same dilemma, if not more.
Yeah, probably more than that. Or maybe they don't know that they are. So, just to give a tiny bit of backstory that's relevant. So, the other thing that's been cool about this is we've opened ourselves up to people from all brokerages. And so, before we really didn't have to introduce ourselves because we had earned the right by production and awards and whatever for people to know who we were. And I don't say that, to brag or anything, but after you've been in a company for so long and you've been on the stages and taught the classes, people just naturally know who you are. And so the cool thing is about all of this is now we're in a new space of people who don't know us. And so I'm going to mention something some of you may know. Uh, from 2013 to 2023, it was actually 2014 to 2023, I was building a real estate team at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Some of the time we were stationed back here at Fort Campbell, but I was just doing long distance stuff. And, that team hit $1 million in GCI. We sold more than 100 homes pretty much every single year. Long story short, I made it. Okay. Like in the eyes of the real estate industry, I was the top of the top. We made it. We were the top 2 or 3 in our office every single year, blah, blah, blah. I sold that business in 2023 when we finally left Bragg for the last time to come back here to Fort Campbell, which is where I'm from. But I left Nashville when I was a young adult, like 21, 22. So I didn't have a database or an influence built here that I left and came back to, just for perspective. So what's happening now is I sold that team in 2023. You and I took the helm of KW Military from 2023 until we left January 1st of this past year, 2026. And so for that 3-year period, you and I were all leadership. It was office leadership, coaching leadership, leadership and coaching companies. You were traveling around. I was doing it, from here. And for 3 years, all we did was lead, teach people how to do
Yeah,
what
all we
we,
did was lead, coach, teach, and mentor individuals
yeah,
in the
not,
business, in the real estate business, and in life.
yeah, and we earned the right to get those spots because of how well we produced and worked our way into being known for those things. And then somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, "Oh, you've done great. You should teach other people how to do this." So that's what we both did. Um, in letting go of all of those things and leaving the company and kind of blowing it up to go on our own, one of the pieces to the puzzle of like putting it back together was that I wanted to get back into real estate sales. And when you sell a business, you sell the database. So anyone I had transacted with for the 750 homes that we had sold, I am now not allowed to talk to because that was sold to the person who bought my team. So I am currently being challenged by rebuilding everything from scratch after being out of the day-to-day of sales for the last 4 to 5 years.
But
And
let's
so
clarify something, right?
yeah,
So when you say that, when you say you're building everything from scratch, you're not just talking about database. You're talking about database, collateral, my message, right? And then
presentations,
yeah,
brand,
social media, all those different things.
I'm
And you
basically
know differently, so you can't. And here's the other thing too, and this is the part. You know differently, so you can't build it the easy way you did before. It's got to be changed. It's got to be the information, right? Not information, information, right, that people have nowadays.
yeah, it's being built like I can tell you this for sure. I built a $1 million a year income company by brute force ignorance and a lot of drive. I did not know anything. I just knew tomorrow I'm selling a house. Tomorrow I'm selling a house. And sometimes I think that that was such a blessing.
Well, it was. You used to tell a story all the time that you would wake up every morning. Okay, look, I'm in the unemployment line today. I've got to get out the unemployment line. Something has got to be signed. I got to have a deal. And being oblivious to everything else and narrowly focused, right, was a blessing at that season in your life. But now you know different.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that happened that's not happening now is I felt like I had something to prove and a chip on my shoulder. So the motivation and the drive during that time was built from, or like derived from, this weird egotistical need to prove my worth in the business because I was so young when I started. And that worked really well. And now I don't feel like I have anything to prove to anyone anymore. I feel like I've proven enough to myself, and I'm working on building something that truly feels good to live inside of. Because I'll never forget this. And I believe she's still coaching at MAPS. Her name's Alice Daly. Have you ever met Alice in any of the things you've done? She's so amazing. I was in a course with her, and she was a participant. And this hit me like a ton of bricks. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And she stood up as she was talking about the real estate team that she and her husband had built, that they like kind of left or transitioned to move to Austin, I think. And she said that she realized that she had built the noose she was hanging herself with. And that one thing has stuck with me even through selling, because that was the thing I had done. I had built the very thing that was suffocating me. And there was no way in my mind at the time, to reorganize and restructure that to become something that felt like freedom. So in coming back into doing this now and doing it all from legitimate scratch, like from, dang it, now I got to go back to networking events and I got to go back to the moms groups and like all these things. I now know enough to know not to do things in a certain way that I did them before, because that will not feel like freedom to me in my daily life. And so it's like, if you imagine like somebody who wants to run a full sprint and there's 4 forks in the road, and they know that 3 out of the 4 of these things are going to get them into a cul-de-sac that they can't get out of, but I don't know which one's the free one. You kind of run down each lane for a second and hit the wall at the end of it, and you're like, nope, 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 not going to touch the stove. Nope, 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 not going to touch the stove. I don't know, Matt. It's been
Well,
interesting. It's been
Well, it
weird.
is, because here's the thing. You could easily go back to brute force and ignorance without a doubt, right? And I don't mean that in a negative way. You have the drive, the support to go back to brute force and ignorance and achieve everything that you achieved before. But here's the difference. Doing it differently will create the freedom that you're actually looking for. The freedom, you say all the time, the freedom to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, where you want, and give what you want, right? That's freedom, right? You've got to do it differently so you don't put yourself in the cul-de-sac, so you're not hanging yourself, so you're not suffocating yourself. That's what becomes overwhelming, because it would be so easy to go back to your natural ability and do what you did, but you know what that outcome is. You know what the consequence is. And because you're making a different choice,
I
it's
know the price.
heavier.
I know the price, and I'm unwilling to pay a lot of money.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just to
But
give
now
an
you got to pay a different price. But here's the thing that people don't realize, right? I know the price and I'm unwilling to pay that price. But there's a different price associated
That's
with
unknown.
doing it differently. So am I willing to pay that? What price am I willing to pay? Because if I don't make a price, if I'm not willing to pay either, then I sit here and do nothing. And, I love to say it. I can't remember where I got it from. You're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. So you can sit on the tree, you can be an apple on tree and keep rotting, or you can go left or right.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is a cool example that I could give that I think everyone listening would associate themselves with is that I've done enough research and listening and understanding around, how are people in real estate today actually winning? How are they building their brands and their businesses and all of that stuff? How are they actually delivering value and getting people to follow them? Because the way I built my team and made all that money was on Facebook, in Facebook groups back when that was a new thing. And that's not necessarily the way it's going to work today. So I say this, and I'll make this make sense in a second. So I've learned a lot the last 6 months of researching how are people winning today. If I were a new agent today, what would I learn that I would have assumed I already knew if I were starting from before. Because I think where a lot of you guys get in trouble and where I would have gotten in trouble had I not had that 3-year break in the middle was that you try to take something that's not working and mold this piece of shit that's not working into a new polished thing. And a piece of shit's never going to be a polished thing. It's just not. So the cool thing is that I don't have this other thing in the way anymore. And I can truly start from zero. So hold on. I'm gonna make this make sense in a minute. We're not just talking about potty words. Um, but here's where things get weird. Because I know so much about how influencers are winning on the internet today, I know a lot about audiences and how the algorithms are serving up content to people that are looking for it. And the epiphany that I am living in today, Matt, that's causing my little meltdown, is the last 4 years, the audience I've built on the internet are real estate agents.
That's the biggest thing. Like, if you look at what we're doing right now, and me, part
And
of not
for
la
me, and
not
for me.
today, but last week's class in authority, we were talking about, hey, look at your social media. Right?
Mhm.
If 99% of the people on your social media are realtors, then you're only talking to realtors, right? Then all you're doing is peacocking, right? And putting to real. And I love the fact that you used mass language, because here's the truth, right? If what you have is a turd, you can put a new uniform on a turd, you can paint a turd, you can polish a turd, you can shine a turd. But at the bottom line, no matter how much you shellac it, it's still a turd, right? So,
Yeah. Well, and that's not meant to be derogatory. It's just natural. Like if you
yeah.
already have something going, you're going to work really hard to keep that thing in a semblance of what it is because you built it and you're proud of it. But like the can of worms that that epiphany has opened for me now that I'm navigating is like, oh my God, if all of my social media is calibrated for referral partnerships, real estate agents, coaching, moving the military, all of that, who's not going to see it? Well, consumers. Well, if consumers don't see it, Deana's not selling houses. So now Deana has to go out. The only option I have, because I know better now, is Deana has to go out and create all new social media accounts and start from zero. I have to be willing. Does my willingness match my wants? I have to be willing to grow organically social media accounts from zero followers, zero posts. I have to go be the new kid at school again. And after being experienced and doing what we've done and like having all of this knowledge, going back and putting yourself in the new kid at school mentality is really difficult.
Well, I
It's
think the other thing,
necessary, but
well,
it's
yeah,
difficult.
it's absolutely necessary. It's difficult. I think the other thing too, that anybody listening to this call, right, and I'll use us for an example, because we do so many different things, we've got to have so many different distribution channels. Like you talked about, my Facebook, it's almost 99% real estate agents. So what I'm putting on there now is content driven toward real estate agents. No longer is it's content driven for moving the military. It's content driven for, some coaching, things like that. But then I have my tickety talk and my Instagram and all that. Well, that's Coach Brutal because that's my coaching, right?
Yeah.
Now, when I start doing real estate again, I'm going to have another one about Fort Carson. That's going to
And
be
that is
another. Yeah,
That's the point of where the overwhelm is coming from
it
for
is.
me today is majority, like 95% of people who are in real estate posting on social media are oblivious to how the platforms show you to other people. Well, I'm not. I'm actually astutely aware of how that works. And that opens a can of worms of like, okay, I can stay ignorant and be chosenly ignorant and just post real estate stuff on my Facebook page and my Instagram, but I already know it's not gonna land because the people there are not buying a house from me. They might be buying advice and coaching and training from me, but they're not buying a house. So what happens if I choose to stay ignorant and I put all this new Deana selling real estate content on these other platforms? I'm messing up that algorithm as well. The one that
Well,
has
you're just
fed.
stacking shit on top of shit, which just gets you a big pile of shit, right? Because you know it's not working. You just keep doing it. You're flooding the market with things that aren't going to work.
Well, no, I'm not because now I know that's what's happening and I'm not doing anything. So I'm stuck in this place of like, I know what I'm supposed to be building and I know what I want to build. And do I truly want to, I'll tell you this after selling, like, I think the highest we did was 160 something, 165, maybe 163 in a year. I have zero desire to ever, right now, as I sit, personally be responsible for an organization that does that anymore. I would love to help other people build into that being their dream. My dream right now, Matt, is not starting work until 10 a.m., being done by 2 or 3, having massive impact and making as much money as humanly possible in that container. And if that's my ultimate goal, putting stuff in a place that doesn't fit makes it take longer.
Well, it does.
And so it's like,
Well,
it's I don't know.
it's the
I'm
same
in a weird
thing.
spot.
Well, think about it. When I was at the top of my game, I was running a team that brought in 130 people in less than 23 months. That's
Mhm.
massive, right? That's huge. But what what it actually took to bring him on, to keep him, to do all these things, I'm unwilling to do that number again. I want to help people get there. My number is a little bit different. 25, 30, 40.
But
I
here's the cool thing though, like, in the organization that we are in, the top organizations for, like, building out only have 25 or 30 on the
right.
front.
Mhm.
So it's weird how, and I think I'll tie these things together. It's weird how aligned things are now, but they feel hard because, or they feel out of touch because it's so different than the way we operated before.
The hardest thing to do is to dump all the things you learned and relearn something new, or relearn what you learned wasn't good. However you want to say that.
Well, or, the other thing I think is important to mention is I think it's unlearning, but it's unlearning the pace at which you had to run and change it out for a slower pace. It's easy to, I think it's easier to like ratchet up and elevate the run. Like, can I run a little bit faster in business? Yes, of course. Can I be a thoroughbred racehorse and enter the carnival as a horse that the little kids ride on? Like, the identity crisis going from a lot to a lot less is a lot bigger, in my opinion, than going from here to here.
Oh, I spun
Because
out of control yesterday. If I could ratchet up my level of control yesterday, I wouldn't have
you've
been
been
no
fine.
problem. But the fact, like you said, due to the fact that I'm no longer that I wasn't the Kentucky Derby host, that I was literally on the 1-year-old pony that the
The
2 year
pony
old sitting on. You know what I mean? I went from a Z28 at the beginning to a hybrid.
Trans Am, a 90s Trans Am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
funny, but
went
it's
from a GT Mustang to a Mustang with a V6. And no offense to y'all bother out there, but why would you buy a Mustang with a V6? Come
or
on.
one of the electric ones. So
Sorry,
it's
Ford.
yeah, it's not funny, but it's such a cluster F because, when you're used to it's like when you're used to being so burnout and spun out and you hit the stove and you're like, "I'm never doing that again." And then you finally get the version of life that you're looking for and it's slower. You almost sabotage the slowness that you were looking for to create more chaos just so you have more problems to fix, which is what was happening with you yesterday and me today. Is like, if I just run faster and I can just figure this out on my own, it's no big deal. And you're like, wait a minute. You literally just let go of every professional tie you had to chase slowness, to chase a more balanced version of this. And you're trying to throw it out of balance for what? It's like I said, it's the inner chess game that we're
Well,
both.
and look, here's the deal, everybody. We've been everywhere on this podcast, man, bringing you something. Deana, give them one thing to close this out with.
Yeah, because you're right. We've kind of been all over the place.
Well, I'll jump in. Here's what I would say. And I learned this from you years ago. You learned it from somebody else. Does your willingness match your want? And that sticks with me all the time. I'm willing to go to that new level of freedom. I'm willing to change things because I want the next level. I want my blueprint. I want my version of freedom. And so I'm willing to have the internal conflict. I'm willing to have the fight. I'm willing to get uncomfortable. I'm willing to have this conversation on this podcast because, man, we teach people what we most need to learn.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to answer, does your willingness match your wants when you're looking to want more
Or on a good day,
or on a good day? But what if you're wanting less? Like, what if when you're honest with yourself, you're wanting less? Less confusion, less complexity, more simplicity, not
are
less
you
money.
willing to well, then again, are you willing to give up control? Are you willing to give up the spotlight? Are you willing to give up the
That second one's
ego?
big. Those
Yeah,
are big. It's like, are you
yeah.
willing to go back to where nobody knows your name?
Are you willing to give up the spotlight? Are you willing to give up the ego stroke positions, titles, all
All
those
of it.
things
Yeah.
if you want to calm it down. So that's it, everybody, man. Today
Well,
was a little bit different, but hey, these
exactly.
are great messages, man. We know it resonated with somebody on there. You know where you're at. If you're looking to find us, come find us. We'll talk to you guys next time.